Welcome to the Copy Talk Podcast. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member, FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Financial planning services through Lighthouse Financial, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Shannon Ross is CEO and managing partner of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse and Cambridge are not affiliated. And now, here's your host, Shannon Ross.
Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to our final episode of the Big Business Series.
Yes.
This is Copy Talk Podcast.
Number 4.
Thanks for joining
us. Yep. Morning.
I'm very excited for this week. It's my son's birthday. My littlest one is
I know.
turning 10 this week. How is that possible?
Such a big birthday.
I know.
I'm excited.
He's my baby, so he's so spoiled. Bless his heart. He's our biggest fan. He was our first subscriber.
First subscriber on YouTube. Listen.
So he's turning 10,
he's
which is
precious.
sad. Like I asked my husband a couple months ago. I'm like, shouldn't we have a fifth? Like he's like, no, because there's a lot of things
excited
that
about.
would need to be reversed, especially on his side. If that was going to happen, he's like, no.
You just disclosed to the Copy Talk world.
You know,
something.
We are honest on this show.
We're very transparent. I don't know that our husbands love that, but I wonder.
I think they gave up listening like 6 months ago.
Oh, I know mine did.
I think just to save our relationship. It makes me embarrassed.
My son used to listen, but then he's like, Mom, this is how he said it. I cannot listen to you. I do not like listening to you. I'm like, well, that's rude. What do you mean by that? Because my kid is really not mean. He's like, it just sounds so weird to listen to my mom on a podcast. I'm like, so you're not saying like I have some hideous voice, or which maybe I do, whatever. Maybe I don't have a podcast world voice.
Well, it's funny now that we're on YouTube. I make my kid, like anywhere we go, if I'm in a gym, if we're at a hotel or whatever. So more and more hotels and stuff have like internet on their exercise equipment. I'm like, see how famous we are? We can pull up our podcast on this treadmill or on this bike or in this hotel room. Like not many moms can do that.
That's true. I bet they don't have any friends whose moms could do that.
And honestly, they're like, wow.
Well,
I know.
Do you think, turning 10, so I've called him Nugget for...
I know.
Ever.
I
wonder if he'll let me.
Nugget,
I don't know if he'll let me keep calling him that.
My older kids are like, Mom, Andrew's going to live with you until he's like 50. I'm like, okay. No, I know. I don't want to enable him. He will be a responsible adult. But
he's the baby. His present came in this week. I still have one more to buy because the last time I was around Nugget was the national championship. I have to share the story because if he's listening, he's going to love this. We were in the living room. He always watches. He always puts on an Alabama helmet when he watches games, and we have I hit the helmet when they do good. Anyways, I brought up his birthday, asked him what he wanted, and nowadays all the kids want are cash, right? Which fine, I'll give them whatever they ask for. But he actually started giving items. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so great. And then I said, you know what, Andrew, what did I get you last year? And he's like, nothing.
Not that he's keeping track or anything.
Looked right at me and says nothing. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? And I'm like picking my brain. He's like, no, that's why around March when you brought, whose birthday is in March? Brennan's birthday is in March.
Yeah,
he's like, that's April. Why when you brought, that's what it was. That's what he meant. When you brought Brennan's present over, I looked because you didn't remember my present.
And I was like, buddy, I'm sure she did. She's like, no, Mom, she didn't. Okay.
He's right, though. And I actually think it was 20. I don't think it was 2021. I think it was 2020. 2020. I think it was.
You don't need to get him.
Oh, yes, I do. Oh, you think I'm not going to make up for that present? Anyways, he's so cute. Anyway, it's happy birthday week to Andrew.
Yes, happy birthday week to Andrew. So good. And, we're getting closer and closer. I guess there's, 62 days until spring, I read. But we don't really get much of a spring guard. Wow. I count the days. You know that I do.
Well, you count days till summer, not spring. You don't.
I know. I'll do anything to get
spring
myself
here's
out
cold.
Of winter. I know. I know.
I love the change in seasons.
January, that's where I really battle. Both my husband and I battle. Because honestly, like when we were in our 20s, on our goal list was like live somewhere warm. And we had it all figured out. And then there were some bad turns around that brought us,
did you just say bad turn?
Well, I didn't know you then.
She wouldn't have met me.
I know.
Without
it
your
all
bad
ended up
turns.
well, but the weather, I struggle with.
I know you like warm. It gets warm in the summer, and you have Texas. I barely go
there
moving.
these
Anytime
days.
she does start doing this, I'm like, oh crap.
January.
Don't leave me.
Oh, I won't. We've already tried that enough times and failed. So
I always get excited the older your kids get. I'm like, surely they won't try to move the older their kids get.
We're here. I know. I love everything about it but the weather. I'm built for, flip-flops and bathing suits.
I know you told me you're going to be buried in flip-flops.
I am.
I
Probably
made
not
a
a
note
bathing suit because I don't really want open casket with a bathing suit on at 105, but
oh, please. That just should not
if you're new
even.
to the show, I always talk about how I want to live until I'm 105.
Well, we all know we're going to be dead
and
before you.
everyone wants to go before me. So,
you better tell somebody along the way that you want to be buried in flip-flops because we're all going to be long gone. Not long, but
I don't know about long gone, but yeah,
whatever. Moving on. I have a correction from last week. Are we getting into the show now?
Yes, we are getting into the show.
You know what we haven't done that we're not going to do today, but we should consider for next time? We haven't done in a long time. We haven't done sanity spins in a while.
Well, I think we need some before. Like, it's been very task-oriented.
Well, I have an idea for a sanity spin for us at the end of February.
Okay.
I texted you about it. Maybe you don't remember.
Yeah, I remember.
But I think we should do something more fun around it, is my point. Anyways.
Perfect.
Okay, so I have a correction. Well, actually, expansion. Yes. A little bit of. So our wonderful producer Ryan, after last show, if you listened, if you didn't, go back. I mentioned an acronym CDFI. We were talking about alternative ways to
gain funding for
funding for small business, and I said CDFI because I couldn't remember what it stood for. And Ryan looked it up, and it is Community Development Financial Institution. I'm reading Shannon's handwriting, which is not easy to do. So Community Development Financial Institution, look that up because that was one of the alternative ways that I read about.
On last show, we were talking about one of the biggest obstacles small business owners face at the beginning or really different stages of their business if they want to expand is funding, financial requirements, how to build your runway. The longer runway you have and the more reserves you have, just the less pressure it is. Mm-hmm. We were talking last week how important it is to build kind of your expense budget, to know what you need to at least break even, and then to know what you need to turn a profit and what kind of profit are you looking for. There's several different models. One model that I always we studied when I was in business school was Amazon. Their margins are actually pretty small per product. Around 10 to 15%. So it's not based on their pricing because they're usually a low price leader, but it's based on volume.
Well, that makes
sense. So that
Yeah.
model is, you can price aggressively if you're going to sell a ton of it. Mm-hmm. But for non-Amazon company owners out there like us, you have to price your products or services in a way that are competitive, that are economical, that deliver value. But, you might not be playing the volume game. So a lot of businesses, the goal is always to get, if you can run a profit margin of about 30 to 40% would be amazing. I'd say the average out there, the goal should be around 30%, which means there's 30% of your top line revenue left over after all of the expenses are paid. Then you're probably in the healthier of categories of businesses out there.
Okay.
And so we spent the whole last show talking about finances. Today we're going to finish up the business series talking about the couple remaining really important things to consider. First one being determining your legal business structure. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people get overwhelmed. Like, what's a sole proprietorship? Yeah. What's an LLC? What's a partnership? What's a corporation?
And it matters. I mean, it does matter what you choose.
Well, it matters for a couple different reasons. Number one, how you're going to be taxed. Again, we always talk about plugging up holes at the bottom of your bucket. Yeah. Taxes are one of those. And it also matters, where do you see this business going? I think 2 shows ago, we were talking about kind of starting with the end in mind. We were talking about making sure you kind of at least have an idea of how you want to exit. Right. Do you want to sell the business someday? Do you want to go public one day? Do you want to be publicly traded one day?
Are you wanting to pass it on to your family?
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And so, and what's funny is, April and I, we have a consulting company called Unify Consulting, and we work with a lot of business clients who are small business owners, and legal structures can change every now and then. And when we review, I remember, this was probably 8 years ago, one of our clients, who was actually a surgeon at the time, was a sole proprietor because that's how he started up his stuff. Yeah. And
remember 8 years ago.
He didn't realize that being a sole proprietor as a surgeon, he was paying, much higher taxes in certain ways because he just wasn't structured to match how his business was operating per se. Mm-hmm. So it definitely matters. And so we're going to just kind of go high level overview. This is one of the areas that I think it is worth it spending, a couple hours with a business attorney to do the formation documents so that you know that you're picking the right formation for what you want to do, because it can get a little tricky. Yeah. And if you pick the wrong one out of the gate, it can be trickier to change it down
you
the
can.
road.
You can. We've had clients that have had to, have found out later on down the road that they maybe shouldn't have been a C Corp. They should have been an S Corp. And you can make an S election, or you can change if you need to. So
that's right. Yep. That's right. So, what, because I know you and Dave own a business, what type of structure do you all have?
Hate. She does. I'm just kidding.
As I'm asking this question,
I actually know this answer.
Oh, yay.
We're an S Corp.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Are you, do you think, is it an LLC? Do you know?
Yep.
I bet it is. We'll confirm that. We should make a bet. I bet you $5 it is.
I don't bet you anymore. No. I always lose those bets.
I bet it is.
Well, I'm going to have to know soon because he wants me getting more involved on the financial side.
Nice.
With all my free time.
Yeah, I take too much of your time. You're not allowed to work on his stuff. You kidding me?
Well, my first question to him, buddy, is, work for free.
How much are you paying me per?
I know, and his knee-jerk reaction, I was like, no. And you've already had me involved in some discussions, and my time isn't free, so you'll be getting an invoice at the end of the week.
Totally. See, so when you start your own consulting business to charge him, you're going to need to know these answers.
Yeah. Well, and especially if he wants me more involved in the accounting and financial side.
Yeah.
So that's going to be my side hustle, is getting involved in my husband's business more so I can make my fun money. Whatever. It's an S Corp. I think it's an LLC. I actually think it is.
I'm like 99% sure it is.
Oh, is that the bet I should have taken?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I am pretty sure it's an LLC.
Yeah. $5. All right. So let's talk about a few of them right off the bat here, because and we're going to actually go to the LLC first, because it is one of my favorites, because it tends to have just a little bit more flexibility for a small business owner. The reason being is it's really important as you start your own business that you protect yourself from a liability perspective. If you pick the wrong structure and leave yourself open, that means if anything happens, they can come after you personally for any type of restitution. And, we live in a very,
litigious society.
Yes. And so it's more and more important, I think, just as time ticks on, that you protect yourself. Not that your intention is not to make a mistake or not to make someone mad.
But you're human.
But, and some people just have
accidents happen.
Yeah.
They just do.
So a limited liability company is one of the most common structures for that purpose. It's like a hybrid structure that has legal protections of a corporation while allowing the tax benefits of similar to a partnership. And an LLC can be also a single member. So if I'm a single owner, which I tend to like, it's really, once you give away ownership in your company, you're handcuffed to that other person until that company dissolves. Yeah. And we've seen clients do that, rush into that and choose maybe partners that, 5 years in, they really regretted choosing that partner. So
is that why you prefer synthetic equity?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think it's a way to reward people like a partner.
Yep.
But you just never know how people's lives can change, what their interests are, what there are not. And so I personally, all the businesses, I won't say all, most are LLCs. I have one partnership, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
But the LLC, again, so you're allowed to have some legal protections there where you're limiting your liability, so they can't come after you personally per se, but you're also able to be taxed as an S Corp election. Why that matters is because, the money goes into your business, you're paid, all of your expenses come out, and then you pay tax on what is left.
Right.
Opposite from like a corporation. A corporation is taxed twice. So as a business owner, that's probably the thing to look at first and foremost with a corporation is you're taxed on the corporate side, and then you're taxed as the income you receive as an owner. You're paid twice. The reason why people pick a corporation is if you plan to go public or seek funding from venture capitalists, you 9 times out of 10 have to be a corporation. There's other, there might be other requirements of how many owners you have, what kind of liability, so this is why I think a corporate attorney spending an hour or two of their hourly fee really matters up front, because pick the right one up front. Then you don't have to make, mistakes and do it incorrectly and have to refile later.
Okay, now I have a question that maybe you can't answer because I know you're not an attorney, but you can play one right now.
I don't play one.
You don't want to play one on the podcast?
Nope.
So
my compliance people would shun me.
Sorry, I forgot about those compliance people. I don't have to be as compliant as you. Okay, so I'm wondering though. So think about it. What if you start off as an S corp because it is more advantageous on the tax side, because maybe you don't ever plan to become a C corp. I know you can go from a C corp to an S corp because we have a client that did it. But can you go from an S corp to a C corp?
Sometimes and this is why an attorney and a CPA on your team is very valuable, because there are certain, and this comes from different state regulations as well, is some require a waiting period, some require, different hoops that you have to wait to do that. And I think it varies by state to state. So that's why we encourage you to find the expert in your state, which is familiar with that state law. The attorney you use is barred in the state you live in. Which is important because every state law can have some, slight differences. But so as we tackle the first two, a corporation versus an LLC, if you're a small business, I don't come across a whole lot of corporations. Corporations are more for your, big Fortune 1000 companies that are IPOs, that do go public, For our audience, I think the majority of us starting businesses are going to be small. The other three options that we're going to talk about. Limited liability being the first one. And then the second two, partnership. Limited liability and a partnership are very similar. A partnership is just as it sounds like, if there's 2 or more people. Okay. So, Lighthouse Financial, I have a business partner that him and I own the company. I'm the majority, he's the minority owner, but we have a partnership because there's 2 of us. And so, it still has the same type of tax benefits as an S corp election does, which is great. And it has the same kind of liability protections. Okay. So for me, it's like, okay, if I'm doing anything solely, I always go LLC. If I'm doing anything with a partner, I'll go partnership. Okay. So those are probably the top 2 I like, because, and I see most of our clients that we have are either
model it that way.
Of those 2. Now, again, if you do something super simple, you'll see a lot of the final structure we'll review today is a sole proprietorship. Okay. So a sole proprietorship. So a lot of, if you mow lawns, if you do something kind of simple, it's not overly complicated. You don't have a partner, a dog walker, someone that's maybe doing a community service of some kind. It's a business entirely by yourself, plan to be responsible for all debts and obligations. It's the simplest, I think, because you don't need to know a lot to do it. But the main thing to know about, if you are a sole proprietor, be warned that this route can directly affect your personal assets and your personal credit. So it doesn't have that wall of protection.
So you're not insulated at all.
You don't have limited liability, you have full liability. Okay. And so a lot of people want to do it because it seems the quickest and simplest route. Sure. But if you're a sole proprietor right now, you might want to take a look and meet with an attorney for an hour and say, okay, is it time to switch to an LLC? Because that protection matters. Yeah. We have some great corporate attorneys that say a human should never own anything.
That's true.
Just because of what risk someone has out there, And so, again, you want to build something that lasts, that's protected. You don't want to have someone coming after your personal assets out of vindication or whatever. Yeah. And so those are kind of the structures that I want you all to look at and be familiar with. Yeah. And pick the one that's right for you, because after you pick the right one, each state has their own licenses you have to apply for, but they also require kind of your initial filing documents with that state. What makes you official? What makes you able to open for business? And that's your articles of incorporation, your operating agreements. Again, there's templates online. I would hire a business attorney.
I would
do it right out of the gate. Spend, probably $500, $1,000 to get it done well. Then they'll tell you, do you need an EIN, which is an employer identification number? What else do you need for your tax obligations and tax forms? what federal, state, local licenses and permits you might need. You know, they will know all of those hoops that you need to jump through to make it happen.
Well, and it might sound, you know, $500,000 up front might sound like a high price tag, and that's too much. You know, I just want to start up something small. The problem is, and we've seen it a million times, I get it. You want to go and you want to hit the ground running, and it's just small. I'm just going to set this up, and I found this free thing online that I can just, and that I hear you, but you may spend a lot more money on the back end when you find out, oh, I needed a permit for that. And you didn't find out until after something goes south and you start to get sued and you don't have this in place. Or and we've seen things like that happen. And that's
most companies out there nowadays have more attorneys on their payroll than salespeople.
Yeah.
Because that's how litigious our society has become.
Right.
And so do it right.
Well, compliance really is important. Setting it out right is important. It is important. You want to maintain the integrity of what you're putting so much into. No doubt. Do it up front and protect the integrity of the company that clearly you're excited about, you're passionate about, or you wouldn't be starting it.
No doubt. And it's small tweaks. Yeah. But those small mistakes could cost
a lot
in fines and penalties.
A lot.
It could sink you. And again, we want the audience,
especially if it's from the government.
Oh, yeah. You know, so 25% of businesses last 15 years or longer. Yeah. We want every one of our audience to be in that category. Yeah.
The Department of Labor and the IRS, if you say, "Oh, I did not know that," ignorance is not a reason for them. They don't care.
No. That doesn't,
So your $500,000 up front, it would have cost a lot less than your much higher penalty on the back end.
You could spend $1,000 up front that saves you $20,000 down the line.
It's true. And that is not an exaggeration.
No, it's not.
No.
And it's usually quite higher.
Yeah.
So that's actually a small estimation. So this is our last show of the Big Business series. I wanted to review legal structure, filing documents, kind of the last details you should be mindful of. Yeah. And insurance is one of those last details because, again, similar to compliance, insurance is kind of in that vein of how do you build layers of protection just in case. In case someone falls on some ice in front of your office. In case someone falls off a chair in a meeting. You just never know what could happen. And there's great options out there, but at least the insurances, if you all want to make a quick list of what's kind of the main things you need to look at. Workers' comp. If you have employees, you need to have workers' comp insurance.
You must have workers' comp.
You must. You must have unemployment insurance.
Yes.
And so those are the musts. Absolutely every business owner should have professional or general liability insurance. That's your umbrella policy that if something goes wrong, you have some kind of protection. You should, if you own an office, if you have a brick and mortar location, you should also have property and casualty insurance. Again, I know these tend to add up, but last show I talked about some areas to save. Maybe you can find someone else to help you on your website and save a few $1,000s.
Right.
Maybe you don't need the fancy copier that costs $10,000 a year.
I didn't get it.
Buy an HP printer for $200.
That's still living.
That's
still living this many years later.
So maybe those are the areas that you can save some dollars to redirect.
Absolutely.
To make sure that you have the policies in place for peace of mind, for coverage, so that someone can't come after your residence. Right. They can't sue you for what cash you have in your bank account or what have you. The last thing, a lot of industries now have what's called errors and omissions insurance. So if you make a mistake on a form or we're all human. We don't intentionally try to make these mistakes. These policies do not cover fraud. They don't cover the maliciousness out there. If you have it in your heart,
don't be. If you're egregious, that's not going to get covered.
We're talking about being human.
Yep.
So insurance, directors
D&O.
Insurance. I mean, there's at the end there's
all kinds of insurance
for everything.
Yeah. But we have a lot of
top 4: workers' comp, unemployment insurance, general liability, property casualty. Yeah. Those are the 4 that are, in my mind, non-negotiable. Yeah. Even, actually, I was on the phone with my car insurance people the other day, and they offer umbrella policies, just in case policies, which I was like, that's a great idea too, just because be covered. You have homeowners insurance. Yeah. That's usually the second check you write is for their mortgage first and your homeowner's insurance second. So insurance matters.
It does.
It helps give you that peace of mind. So that's important.
It's worth
detail.
cutting some other expenses back on your
Absolutely.
expense item list and making sure you have that.
And the last items I wanted to cover before we end the show today.
Well, I like this one right here.
Well, yes. The next is build your team. Well, build your team and build your vendors, which to me, vendors and team members are one in the, very similar. Because we have learned as we've grown a little bit, we will try to outsource certain, maybe accounting instead of hiring a new employee. You always have to kind of compare what's the hourly rate of an accountant versus a salary of a full-time employee.
Right.
And so that's what we constantly look at in our businesses. And building your team, we've spent a lot of time on the show in Myers-Briggs and emotional intelligence that helps to equip us how to kind of know someone and how they might react under stressors and how they react when they're not monitored 24/7, and those sorts. And we do a lot of that with the employees we bring on.
But Shannon, when you had to build your team,
I hire friends, which I love. I know.
This is why it's my favorite part of the conversation.
And you family business owners, I don't, I work with friends, not so much family members. My husband and I work together, but that took many years to figure out how to do that with still liking each other at the end of the day. I feel like working with family is the hardest in my mind.
Well, because then you talk about it too much too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But working with friends, I get a hoop from. I do. I don't know if y'all do, but I do.
Well, not to toot my own horn, but you kind of lucked out a little bit.
Oh, I did.
In the sense that, because some people, I'm joking around. Sort of.
Sort of, but not really.
Sort of, but not really. Hiring your friends could go real south.
Oh, it could.
So it's not that you just hired me because I was your friend.
No.
I'd already been in the work.
Yes.
You were
a
industry.
proven hard worker.
I was.
Very capable, very smart, very intelligent. And I feel like we knew enough in our dynamic of our friendship that we could draw lines. Like when it was time to work, it was time to work. If we had to have conversations that were a little awkward and uncomfortable, we've had to do them. Yeah.
Well, but we also knew and I think if you're building a team and you're wanting to bring in a close friend or your best friend, I think the most important thing is we knew each other's personality and dynamics.
Yes.
So I know you very well. You know me very well. So we know our strengths. We know our weaknesses. And we also know where not to get offended.
Yeah.
We know where, because you can be hardcore T. Like if you don't know Myers-Briggs, I'm not trying
to be bossy.
Well, but
that's not T per se.
That's not T per se. But not so much bossy. But there is a time. There's a time
to get to work.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah. But I know that about you.
Yeah.
And then you know things about me that that I think it's worked because of historically what we knew about each other and the way our friendship started.
We learned through it too.
Yeah.
Sure. There were some conversations I remember that we were like, "Are we still going to do this?" I know you
actually
never
that was
remember
you.
them, but
we won't do this. Okay, this has already come up on the. Remember how many shows ago did this come up? And
a lot of
do you remember
shows
that?
ago.
And I was like, what? On the podcast. I was not acting. That was real. I don't act, but I was like, really? She thought that before?
Whatever.
News to me. I didn't. But that said, that's it. So I'm joking about the friend thing. But in building your team is critical.
But what I do love is because we do work with friends and we work with especially women in our office that are just so devoted.
Yeah,
it's more like a family and loyal. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what time of day. Like if we need each other for something, we are there. Yeah, and that's what I've never found in the corporate world. And that's rare. And that's one of my favorite parts of owning my own business. We rally. Is handpicking people who will walk through fire, who you will walk through fire for.
Right. It's not just one-sided.
Absolutely.
Right.
And, I think the mark of a good leader is you make your employees feel safe.
Absolutely.
The mark of a boss, you make your people feel anxious.
Yeah.
And so I think the mark of a good leader, you make your people feel safe. They feel well taken care of.
Right.
They know the rules. They know the boundaries. They know what they're all here to do. But at the end of the day, you're on their side.
Yeah. Well, and they feel invested.
That make a difference. Yeah.
And then because you make them feel important and what they're doing matters.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. So those are the items, that we wanted to make sure we cover that are for us, what we've learned based on our experience, based on the research we've done. Those are the top items that we felt were most important to bring to the mix as we finalize the Big Business series.
I know,
and
I feel like there's so much more to
there
this.
is. I know.
I love this
and
topic.
If we didn't review your question, or if you have a specific question, come to our website, ask it on the Contact Us button on copytalkpodcast.com. That's your next step, is contact us and let us know what your questions or struggles are, and we can find resources for you.
And
we
you
do
know
this
what?
with clients every day.
If we start getting enough questions in, we could dedicate a whole podcast to a Q&A one day.
Absolutely. Yeah, no
I
doubt.
love Q&A podcasts.
Absolutely.
And
we do the whole gamut. Like I said, we do business consulting. We do financial management. We do financial budgeting, all those things in the organizations that are under and touched by the show. So, that's why we started it, to be a resource for you guys. And we thank you for our loyal listeners.
Yes.
We thank you for our loyal subscribers. And as we close out today's show, do we have a hashtag for this week? Our hashtag guru
Ryan.
Hashtag protect yourself.
Oh,
Love it.
I like
God,
it.
He's killing it.
He is.
Man.
That's why he's the guru. Nice.
Bell
Okay,
for
well,
Ryan.
how can people find us?
Well, I'm glad you asked,
I almost
because
forgot.
you never forget. We have our website. Truly, click on Contact Us, or you can DM us with a message on Instagram. I think it'd be really cool to do a Q&A episode. That just hit me. But anyways, our website, copytalkpodcast.com. Resources link, contact us. I think there's a picture.
Facebook,
YouTube. I don't even think I hit.
They can see your tried out hat from today. Need more happy hours.
It's just one triangle.
I know.
You're so funny. But subscribe. Thank you to our loyal listeners and our followers. We really appreciate you. Please share.
Yes. So we'll see you next week. Big business.
It's
big
over.
Go big or go home.
That's right.
Boom.
Boom. Out. Bye, everybody.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Financial planning services through Lighthouse Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor. Shannon Ross is CEO and managing partner of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse and Cambridge are not affiliated.